Hello. Welcome in. It's the PHNX Cardinals podcast, your premier Arizona Cardinal podcast. Like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star wherever you get your programming. Become a diehard. Go PHNX.com here on a Football Tuesday. I'm Johnny Venerable with my co-host, Paul Brock, Damon Dog behind the mic, and we are thrilled to welcome, as we do every Tuesday during draft season, Brian Baldinger of All Cities NFL podcast. Baldy, we are roughly 10 days away from the first round of the 2024 NFL draft. What's one thing since the last time we spoke that you have learned about a prospect in particular that gets you fired up?
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot there. Let's see. I think we're finding out just how deep this wide receiver draft is. Like, the more you watch them and the deeper you go into it, you go Roman Wilson, Xavier Legette. You just keep going. Lad McConkey. Like, we want to talk about the top three. And they're good, and we can get to the next group. But you just keep going. You keep going. Go. Oh, they can run. Oh, he knows how to get open. Oh, he's a good slot receiver. Like, you just keep seeing the depth of these receivers. And then if you sort of project a little bit about the impact that a lot of rookies receivers have made immediately, given the quarterback stability, some of the things you need in order for a receiver to flourish, you go, a whole bunch of, I think we could see easily 30 receivers drafted that could have an impact in 1 through 7 rounds.
That's a staggering number. It's a staggering number, but we've seen throughout this draft season, one of your colleagues at NFL Network, Peter Schrager, had Jalen Polk sneaking into the top 32, who's incredible as far as the passing game. He'll get dirty as far as run blocking, as will Roman Wilson. But as we do sit here 10 days out, what do we know as far as near truths about this top 5? What can we say definitively or nearly definitively about this top 5 outside of maybe Caleb Williams going number 1?
I feel like the quarterbacks are going to go off the board. I mean, I understand this is the lying season and there's smoke screens, but I just feel like all the momentum has it going literally 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row. Like, I just feel like right now we're looking at Caleb, we're looking at Jaden, we're looking at Dre, and we're looking at JJ. And maybe the Giants trade with Monty. Maybe Joe Shane picks up the phone and calls Monty. Like, I need that number 4 pick. I got to make sure I get my guy before somebody else, Minnesota or somebody else. Like, I feel like that's a sweet spot, and that's where it's going to start. It's going to start right there in the desert with Monty at number 4. And does Minnesota want to get there? Just imagine if Arizona made that trade and they got 11, 23, and 27 in this draft, and then Monty does what he did last year and says, oh, I want one of these guys. I'm going to use one of these assets and go trade back up and get myself one of these receivers and a defensive end, whatever. Like, I feel like all of that is in play right now.
How close is the gap between Baldy, Odunze, and Malik Nabers to Marvin Harrison Jr.? Because I feel like, I don't know, we've got some prospect fatigue with Marvin because he's not doing anything. He's not participating in the offseason. We've talked about that before. And there are some people who have Malik Nabers over Marvin, maybe who have Rome over Marvin. Like, when you watch the tape and analyze these 3 receivers, who, by the way, they're all going to go top 10. Like, none of them are going to fall outside the top 10. What's your analysis of the hierarchy?
Honestly, you can easily talk yourself into any order you want on any given day. You can say, okay, Marvin stepped into Columbus as an 18-year-old freshman and just took over the Rose Bowl. And then, and that's with Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith and Jigba, and all that. Like, he took over the game. Probably the best player on the field that day. So, you can look at any particular game. You can look at the body of work of Odunze this year and easily make him the number 1 receiver. You can look at his contested catch rate. You can look at his 3 drops. You can look at his punt returns. You can look at how smooth he is, how he, just how articulate he is. And look, I don't really care if the guy can give you Roman history off the top of his head, and Roman probably can, but that doesn't matter. But I mean, just the football IQ and how he plays. Like, I honestly, when you ask me a question, I think we're just splitting hairs between these 3.
But then when you get to the next tier, and you mentioned like 30 guys this entire draft, which is insane and a true testament to how deep this class is. And you look at wide receiver, tackle, and those two impressive position groups. But from those top 3 guys where you've got, draft analysts saying that in any other draft, Nabers is the number 1 wide receiver over Marvin, you're making your case for Rome. And I absolutely see that. But when you look at the next wave of guys, Brian Thomas, who else do you include in that? And I guess, how big of a difference is there? How much of a drop off in talent is there in your opinion?
I mean, Brian Thomas has everything it takes. He's got size, he's got elite speed. There was days when he was winning outside and Malik was winning inside, or they ran in combination. But Mitchell from Texas is certainly in the conversation. Xavier Worthy from Texas, both those guys are certainly in the conversation. Keon Coleman has everything it takes. He just didn't run fast. But we've seen plenty of receivers, namely Puka last year, catch over 100 balls, dominate this league from week 1, and he didn't run fast. And then, you can look at Leggett at South Carolina, and you could look at Lag McConkey at Georgia, and Troy Franklin at Oregon, who's almost 6'2" and 200 pounds and runs well, and was the go-to guy in Bo Nix's offense. And Roman Wilson, when JJ did get in trouble, that was his go-to guy, was to find Roman on scramble drills, the plays beyond the X's and O's. You want to, if you're looking for a guy, and, this is a scary comp, but you watch Malachi Corley play, that guy looks like Debo. Just his lower body, his power, his yards after catch. You watch him against Ohio State, Western Kentucky. He's got that. This thing just goes on and on and on. And Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan at Washington. Now we're down into the lower teens, and I'm still going with guys that I think can have an impact.
We got in an argument yesterday, Baldy, over production versus projection. You look at somebody like Latu from UCLA, who has the production, but has a little bit of a medical blip where he was temporarily forced to medically retire. Yeah. Then you compare that to somebody like Chop Robinson, who maybe doesn't have the statistics, but 4.40 and some of the advanced metrics support him. What do you make of this pass rush class? Because I really do think it's the Cardinals' MO. Receiver in the top 10, and then have a pass rusher of sorts faulting them at 27. What's a good scenario for them to land?
Well, Latu is interesting because, Jalen Phillips, who tore his Achilles last year, but is a star in Miami, and he hasn't even reached, but he was at UCLA and he had neck issues, much like Latu. I don't know if it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But he literally retired, stepped away from the game, went down to the University of Miami, had a year down there, got drafted, pretty high. I feel like, and I worked with Sterling Sharp, who broke his neck on a Monday Night Football game. He could have come back and played. He was cleared to play. He decided not to. And Latu didn't do that. But guys have had neck issues and have come back from it. It didn't look like it affected him at all. If you just want to say pure talent to rush a passer, Latu is clearly better than everybody in this draft. His ability to beat one-on-ones, to literally get on your edge, make life miserable on the edge, beat you in a variety of ways, give ground, take ground. He is slippery. He's a talented player. Now you can look at Chop Robinson, you can look at Jared Verse, and you can look at all these guys out there. Dallas Turner, he's a better pass rusher than all of them. And he can rush inside, he can rush outside, he has good length. He's the best. Now you could project Chop and you could project all the other guys because of their measurables and size. None of them had the production that Latu have had so far.
We want to really tap into your expertise, and we've talked about the tackle class before, and we look at this Arizona Cardinals offensive line, and it's got Paris Johnson Jr. He's a player under contract for the next 4+ years, and they just signed Jonah Williams, who's going to play at the tackle position, but Froholt's in a contract year. Will Hernandez is in a contract year. There's question marks at the left guard spot. Interior offensive line. You got your Duke hat on. Graham Barton is a really impressive prospect. Who do you like in that class? How do you rank them? JPJ's been fantastic. He's been on the rise all draft season.
Well, if Graham Barton wants to play guard, he's probably going to be a Pro Bowl guard. If he wants to play center, I think he's going to be a Pro Bowl center. The way that he runs is I met him last year. I know he went to Duke, but I met him at the OL Masterminds in Frisco last year. Had a nice little chat with him. He said, look out for me, Baldy. I'll be the left tackle this year. But he's played center. He's talked to. I think he's taken all of his visits, and he presents himself very well. He's got a big upside wherever he goes, whatever position. But I think he's going to be a center. To me, the number one guard in this draft is Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State.
Wow.
And if you looked at what the Rams did last year, they drafted Steve Avila in the second round at a TCU, and he literally played every snap at guard for the Rams. The Rams fixed their offensive line last year. It came together. Villa was a big part of it. I nicknamed him the Wad. He just wadded things up inside the way you got to do that with guards. So Cooper Beebe, I think, moves better than what Avila did. I think they're going to play Avila at center this year. It looks like he's going to move into center. He played center at TCU too. So I think it's going to be a natural transition. But I like Cooper Beebe. I like this kid. I just got done watching this kid at UTEP. And he reminds me of like Will Hernandez from the standpoint of his strength. And he played at UTEP, both played at UTEP. But this is Elijah Klein is probably a day 3 player that he's played every position. He's played both tackles, played both guards. He's really tough. Top offensive line coaches in this league have signed off on him. They're like, this guy can play. Like, he just looks like a guard. But, I think you could look at Christian Haynes at UConn, and I think he has a comp to maybe Nate Davis coming out of Charlotte 4 years ago. He might not set the world on fire right away, but I think he's got power, and I think he could become a pretty good pro.
The Cardinals seem pretty well set at running back, at least this year with James Conner. And last year of his deal, they've got some supplemental depth, Michael Carter and et cetera. But, I'm always one to splurge on a running back. I like a team like the Cardinals who are run dominant. And then you're looking at maybe the end of day 2, early day 3. Like, I've seen a lot of people, Baldy, kind of bash this running back class. Are there some players that you think are future bell cow running backs, even though we don't have, the Jahmyr Gibbs of the world that are going to set the world on fire in the first round necessarily?
Yeah, well, that's okay. There's no Bijan in this draft.
Yeah.
That's okay. Like, there's a lot of depth here. Gosh, you could go deep into this draft. I mean, you could look at Blake Corn. Is he going to be a second or third round pick? You could look at Jonathan Brooks is coming off his injury, but he's a 1-year player.
Yeah.
He doesn't have, I don't believe he's got 300 total touches yet, at Texas. You could look at Marshawn Lloyd at USC. He doesn't have 300 touches, but in his role at USC, and they rotated their backs there, like, he has home run hitting ability. Okay. You could go look at the kid from Louisville right now that I think has a chance. Isaac Garendo at Louisville. You watch his final game at USC. He ran a 4.33. Not that that's everything. But, he was a dominant player against USC in a bowl game this year for Louisville. Their starting running back got hurt. He filled in. Like, he stepped up. I just think there's an awful lot of depth. I don't think, like, you could look at, Benson at Florida State. You could look at a lot of different guys in this draft. Amari Bailey at TCU. I could go on and on. I just think there might not be the Bijan or what Detroit did last year, but I think there's quality backs in this draft that can step in and give you 100 carries this year and present themselves really well. There's Ray Davis at Kentucky, a 1-year player. Like, you watch Ray Davis play, and you're like, watch him against Georgia and watch him make these house calls against Georgia. Like, a lot of these guys pop. And they're young and they're fresh, and they've got contact balance. It's what you're looking for right now.
A big fan, draft favorite of our show has been Braylon Allen. I mean, he's a youngster, 20 years old, plays at a running back university in Wisconsin. Isn't he a converted linebacker? At some point, they didn't have just a clear-cut running back, and he emerged. Let me get you out on this, Baldy. I was out at the facility yesterday. The team reported for its offseason strength and conditioning program. And you could tell people were excited to get back in this building and get to work under Jonathan Gannon. And, you spent a lot of time with Paris Johnson Jr. You've seen the pass rush ability from B.J. Ujulari. Very impressive rookie class. Who do you think makes the biggest jump? And it's not just second-year guys in year 1 to year 2 under Gannon and crew.
Well, I mean, look, if you just take a look at B.J., like he played in every game last year, stayed healthy, played 17 games. I think he had 4 sacks. Okay, But typically, pass rushers, whether an outside linebacker, defensive end, you're getting after quarterbacks. The biggest jump that a defensive lineman make is going to be between the first and second year. Very few, including Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack, very few make a big impact their first year. But I feel like BJ has what it takes to make a jump. Like, that would be huge. If he could get, close to that double-digit sack rate, become his full-time starter. We got to figure out, just what that rotation might look like, how Jonathan's going to play his defense this year. Paris played every snap last year.
Yeah.
Played every snap. And I talked to guys, Will Anderson worked with him. He worked with a lot of people. I think he changed his set about halfway through the season last year. And I think he was a vertical set guy, and it just gives guys in this league a big runway to come after you. I think he went more horizontal, stepped out to his defensive end and got his hands on him quicker. I think it made a difference. I mean, I'd have to ask Paris that specifically, but I mean, those are two good picks. You're sitting here at 4-27. Give me two more good picks: defensive lineman, receiver, and just keep building this thing. And then the fact that you said it looked like there was big excitement, that's what you want. You want these guys coming back. They're there every day. I believe the offseason is unbelievably important. You build. I mean, when I played, I always loved the offseason. We played basketball. We went golfing. We went out, had drinks together. We just built a fraternity. We did everything together. My best friends were my teammates. And so that's what you want to begin to build at that facility in Arizona right now.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. 10 days out from the draft. Let's say the Cardinals trade out at pick 4. Which team's coming up, presumably for JJ McCarthy? Baldy's breakdowns here on the clock.
I'll say the Giants come up. I know that's a rumor, and I don't know if they are or aren't. But I'll say that would be the most logical, closest team right now. You could still get the 6th pick. You could keep, all that stuff. You could still get yourself a receiver, and you could add additions to this draft, depending on what you get if they go from 6 to 4. There you are picking at 6. You're still getting a receiver, a good receiver at 6. So it might be a Malik. It might be Rome. Who knows? It might be Marvin.
Right.
But you still get a receiver that you covet and you need, because I think you're going to draft 2 of them. But do you add a little bit of addition to this particular draft? It would make a lot of sense to take that phone call.
If you're wondering a little bit about prospect Baldy dropped on you, Elijah Klein, it's on his Twitter account right now doing his Baldy breakdowns like he does so well. Also, you can find a picture of Baldy with the greatest offensive catcher of all time, Mike Piazza. That's a great beat pick you dropped on us this week.
Yeah, that was somebody threw that back in the day. Me and Piazza were training in Hermosa Beach, California. He had a broken thumb, and I had whatever injury I had at that time. But we were trying to do whatever we could do at that time.
Well, it's a must follow for any sports fan out there. Even if it's this Klein kid beating up on U of A in his footage, Damon, don't watch it. But it's fantastic. As always, Brian Baldinger, our All-City NFL analyst, NFL Network. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, maybe we know a little bit more next week than we do right now. But it's heating up fast, and the rumor's going to keep flying. So we'll address all of it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Baldy.
See you, John. Take care, guys.